week's edition of Farmers Connection. I'm Christopher Holder. Farmers Connection is a presentation of the Ministry of Agriculture and brought to you this week in association with the Pesticides and Toxic Chemicals Control Board, the Guyana Rice Development Board, and the Guyana Land Development Authority. On this week's program, we bring you highlights of the recent National Cane Farmers Conference, which was held at the Arthur Chung Convention Center on the east coast of Demerara. At that conference, stakeholders were allowed the opportunity to learn about the state of cane farming in Guyana, its relation to sugar production, and of course, what are some of the challenges facing cane farmers in Guyana. Of course, how they see themselves getting out of whatever position they are in today. Farmers Connection is produced for television by Matrix Video Productions and Advertising based in East Berbice. We will be back after these messages.
Householders, the fumigant aluminum phosphide, commonly known as carbon tablets, is a highly restricted use pesticide that should only be handled by trained professionals in the pest control business. This fumigant is among the deadliest in the world and should only be applied in sealed or enclosed places. It must never be used in the home, office, or where humans live, work, or play. It is not a rat bait and should never be used as such. A message from the Pesticides and Toxic Chemicals Control Board, Ministry of Agriculture.
Government has restated its commitment to the revitalization of the local sugar industry, despite the enormous challenges it now faces. Speaking at the opening of the National Cane Farmers Conference, organized and hosted by the Ministry of Agriculture, Prime Minister Moses Nagamutu assured the nation that despite the current banga seed time, government will not allow the sugar industry to sink.
In the old days, sugar was called cane sugar. Later, it was renamed bitter sugar. Today, sugar is no longer king. It has been reduced to the state of a pauper, a beggar that lives off handouts from the state. This year, within days of the new APNU-AFC coalition taking office, we gave the sugar industry $4 billion bailout after we discovered that not a cent was left with GAISUCO to pay wages to sugar workers. In the past 2 years, Parliament authorized some $17 billion to be transferred to this corporation, GAISUCO, whose leadership we diagnosed and we understood in the past brought GAISUCO as an industry to its knees. The industry now badly needs another $12 billion injection. And even at this hard, Guyanese would call it banga seed time, this new government will not allow the sugar industry to sink.
According to the first Vice President, the current evolution of the corporation requires the purging of the political appointments to the management of the entity, which resulted in the mismanagement that has realized GAISUCO's woes today.
We have since also appointed a new board of directors. Hopefully, we can find answers that could help the industry to move forward. One such answer being, why is the mighty Skelton factory, on which some $47 billion have been spent, continues to be a failure? These answers are also important to cane farmers, since, to paraphrase an old saying, when GAISUCO sneezes, cane farmers catch a cold. Sugar is important to all of us. These answers are also important. There should be no discussion or debate regarding the importance of the sugar industry to Guyana's economy. It should be noted, and in fact, we have said this on a number of occasions, that this government sees sugar as too big to fail. This has been our position while we were in the opposition, and this continues to be our position now that we are the government.
Referring to Gaisuko's contribution to the local economy, the Prime Minister said it remains a significant contributor to the nation's foreign exchange earnings. He said over the 300-year history of sugar in Guyana, the industry has faced many challenges, its fortunes impacted by the realities of the day. Those challenges continue today, but government is determined to ensure that sugar does not fail. The PM noted that while government is committed to the revitalization of the industry, it must be a collective effort involving all stakeholders, key among which are the cane farmers.
The private cane farmers community total 2,200 individuals. They must be recognized for their sterling contributions to the overall production drive of Gaisuko, including their families. This will probably amount to over 10,000 persons who have for many years dedicated their lives to growing sugarcane. These farmers are expected to produce 26,132 tons of sugar this year. I'd like to repeat that number, 26,132 tons of sugar. They have already made 8,991 tons in the first crop, and another 17,141 tons of sugar is expected for the second crop. This will amount to approximately 11.5% of the total sugar production for this year. I think this is, by any average, a very good and rewarding performance. Could be better. There are many shortfalls, however, that affect the cooperation, and as a government, we are going to ensure that they are adequately addressed and with a matter of urgency.
Prime Minister Moses Nagamutu also outlined a rash of problem areas affecting the industry's production efforts, stressing that government will be seeking resolutions to these challenges.
Among the areas, enhanced focus will be placed on this year would include shortage of skilled personnel, labor turnout in the fields and factory, Gaisuko's capital expenditure program, cost of production and marketing of sugar. These remain important if we are going to have a viable industry. We are also prepared to work on all these challenges and to support the industry. Sugar is about the economy, as I said. It is a big foreign currency earner. It is still a big source for job creation for many, and as such, it is not something to dissolve like sugar in our tea. You can rest assured, as you have been today by the Minister, that you will not be unemployed. Jamaica scaled back. Barbados went out of sugar. Trinidad and Tobago also went out of sugar. St. Kitts went out of production. Our cost of production is high, but despite this, we still have hope that the industry would improve and eventually succeed. In 2014, last year, Gaisuko recorded a production of 216,147 tons of sugar. The first crop having surpassed the 75,000 ton target, bringing in about 80,000 tons for that crop. Gaisuko is targeting in 2015 production of some 240,000 tons of sugar. Can this be reached? The answer is yes. This government is formed in belief that it can be reached, and you, cane farmers, have a significant and important role to play.
According to the Prime Minister, government is working to position the sugar industry in a competitive footing, giving it the edge needed to stay viable in an environment of fierce competition for sugar markets in and out of the region.
With the establishment of a commission of inquiry into the sugar industry, we are attempting to ensure that we create a flexible, integrated and environmentally sensitive sugar subsector to satisfy the demands of domestic, regional and international competitive markets. This government will also be looking to complement cost-effective production with enhanced processing and marketing, as well as establishing programs for technical and financial support. We will also look at making more lands available to cane farmers and to stimulate cane farmers' cooperatives. We believe that to keep the industry viable, we'll have to create ways to retain whatever manual labor is left and to diversify the industry to cultivate products more suitable to our bed field layouts. I say, GAISUCO cannot be divorced from this effort, and it must be applauded for the lifeline support they have given to private cane farmers through the extension and extensive services provided them over the years. Difficult times are now with us, especially with plummeting market prices and rising operating costs and climate change. Farmers must embrace these changes. They must not only work harder, but smarter also.
In his presentation, Agriculture Minister Noel Holder told the conference that GAISUCO's production and the sale of sugar to its markets overseas is set to increase by some 68% over its previous sales. But before that, much must be accomplished. The Agriculture Minister pointed to the contributions of local cane farmers, stressing that their conditions of work will be reviewed with a view to making terms more favorable.
The conditions under which the private cane farmers operate will be reviewed. Take, for example, punch charges. For a number of years, punch charges were considered exorbitant in some estates. However, this had been reviewed and reductions were made by 21% at Skelton, 13% at Albion, 4% at Rose Hall, and 2% at Wales. Many private cane farmers rely on sugar estates for land preparation. However, the timely availability of machinery is usually lacking, resulting in a backlog on both estates and private farms. Can we not consider machinery pooling agreements? Considerations for the management of such an arrangement would have to be fleshed out. I hope that the access dams will also be addressed. Dams are used to take in inputs and bring out canes, especially in Wales, where trailers are used instead of pumps. But who are accountable to these dams? From all indications, there are no clear responsibilities for fixing and budgeting. All of this should change. For instance, the National Cane Farming Committee made a successful petition to the National Drainage Mitigation Authority for the rehabilitation of drainage and infrastructure for the benefit of Enmore, LBL, and Wales farmers. Now, farmers are able to improve their cane yields in these areas. This partnership will continue with the sugarcane farmer representative on the board of directors of the NDIA.
Minister Holder also stressed government's concern at the abandonment of private cane farms.
To date, we have confirmed 1,814 hectares of abandoned farmland due to varying reasons. I would like to implore the farmers, let us work together with the National Cane Farmers Committee to rebuild their land and reclaim the sugar industry. Also, I would like to commend the National Cane Farmers Committee on the work done to resuscitate the Bloomfield and PMU co-op at Albion. Keep this up. I want to now encourage investors. Let's have a conversation on the viable economic opportunities available in the cane farming business. I say to you today, the hour of available land. Abandoned land by GAISUCO that you can have access to. We are prepared as a government to look at the remission of duty-free concessions for machinery. These are the many measures the government is supporting to encourage the operation of cane farming as a viable business opportunity. I would also suggest that established cane farmers to look to other alternatives in the industry. Maybe it is not always the best option to have Gaisuco monopolize all segments of the industry. You can play a fundamental role in taking the industry to a new level.
The Agriculture Minister also spoke of the importance of the economic diversification of the sugar industry, ensuring that there is value added along each step of the production cycle.
It must be recognized that the industry does not produce sugar alone. Byproducts can be produced at every stage of the sugarcane plant. Currently, bulk molasses is used by DBL in the production of spirits and alcohol. Gaisuco is venturing into bottled molasses. 160 cases of bottled molasses, 12 bottles each, were sold in 2014. This is a great opportunity for Guyana to brand our molasses, as there is significant interest in this product. Direct consumption of packaged sugar can be produced in half kilogram, 1 kilogram, 2 kilogram, 25 kilogram, and 50 kilogram bags, based on market demand. The corporation has launched a new brand of packaged sugar for the US and Canadian markets, Enmo Crystals. And they are working with Caribbean retailers to produce specialized brands of packaged sugars at premium prices in the market. Research for value-added products is key. For instance, production of paper, paperboard products, ruminant feed, wax, etc. Areas for diversification for Gaisuco are as follows. Packaging and storage of rice. In addition to packaging sugar, Gaisuco is exploring the possibility of packaging rice using the existing staff and skills. Ethanol. Gaisuco has the capacity to produce 217 liters of ethanol per day. They currently produce 96 liters per day. This will enable the corporation to reduce fuel costs when used internally and earn revenue. Currently, Gaisuco is now self-sufficient in producing E10 fuel at a net savings of approximately $7 million. Aircraft services. The corporation aircraft department has extended the service the air applications of fertilizers and chemicals to rice farmers at a cost of $192,500 per hour with the use of existing staff and equipment. Services to rice farmers and rentals earn the corporation approximately $13 million to $20 million per year. Aquaculture farming. Tilapia and patu harvesting can be a possible alternative. However, cost of production to convert land will have to be addressed. With the dwindling exports to Europe, the corporation has begun to tap into the CARICOM market. Sales of direct consumption and packaged sugar have been focused in this region. In 2014, the corporation sold 17,434 tons of sugar to CARICOM and regionally, and projects to increase this by 69% in 2015 to 29,409 tons, and a further 42% in 2016 to 41,784 tons.
The viability of marketing Guyana's sugar to the Caribbean was the crux of differing positions outlined by the chairman of the Gaisuco Board of Directors, Professor Clive Thomas, and the Gaisuco CEO, Paul Bim. In his presentation, the Gaisuco Board chairman said one option open to the loss-making entity is to sell more sugar to sister Caribbean community countries by taking advantage of the market protection the 40% common external tariff offers.
First of all, Guyana's price taker in all markets, except possibly in the US, is only domestic market, where again we direct demand because we control the price of the market internally through regulations imposed by the state. The CARICOM market does the same because we have common external tariff which is supposed to give us protection when the volumes of sugar exceed certain limits. But the main export markets that reside outside that United States market is operating with a tariff rate quota. The European market used to give us preferences which will be completely eroded by the end of 2017, that's next year. And the so-called world market is then a residual market. There was an attempt to try to change this. We had established in the early 2000s the Doha round of global trade negotiations. We hear nothing about this now, but if you remember, after 2005, every time you open the papers, you will hear something about a trade negotiation that were taking place. Now we hardly hear anything. And the main reason is that those negotiations have stalled. And they are basically stalled because of the crux of the essential problem when it comes to subsidies. The rich countries and the poor countries fail to find common agreement. That is why we never hear anything more about WTO and the Doha negotiations. They're supposed to be taking place, but that impasse nevertheless remains. So one of the daunting prospects that sugar faces is that it operates in a market where the price is not determined by free flow of demand and supply, but by government decisions, government regulation, government segmentation of the markets in every country around the world. The residual market is probably less than 5% of the total sugar produced on Earth. The basic reason why I am giving that caution is because although we have an idea what the cost of sugar production is again, we can't take it so literally as to believe that we are uncompetitive in an absolute sense. That has not been proven because we don't know what the real price or the true price of producing the sugar is. That has not been determined by any set of market forces. But nevertheless, it's important for us to bear that in mind. So I just want to say that the first thing that we face is the daunting condition of the complexity of the global market. And particularly its difficulty in being able to guarantee us a definitive notion of price and cost for sugar.
In his presentation, Gaisuco CEO Paul Bim argued that marketing sugar in the Caribbean will not be easy because of emerging competition from sister CARICOM producers Belize and Jamaica that are also eligible for CET protection from extra-regionally produced sugar.
Our sugar markets comprise mainly the EU, the CARICOM markets, including Guyana, and also including some of the other regional markets like Turks and Caicos and the Cayman Islands. Local, as I mentioned, the USA, where we have a small quota under the TRQ, the tariff rate quota. It's about 12,600 tons of sugar, though the pricing is quite good. And of course, we have USA and Canada, where we're barred from selling Demerara Gold at the moment, which we're hoping to get back into with the Enmore crystals. There is a possibility of selling some sugar into, this is raw sugar actually, into Austria. But that's a work in progress, and we should hear a bit more about that a bit later on. Molasses, we sell into Guyana, the CARICOM. Puerto Rico, we've actually sold molasses to Puerto Rico, to Bacardi. I'm sure a few of us have drank a bit of Bacardi at times. I have, and our molasses actually, some of our molasses actually going to making that Bacardi rum, that famous Bacardi rum. And at times we've actually done a few sales to the UK as well. As I mentioned, the Demerara Gold brand, which we started to market in North America, we were stopped in our tracks about 3 or 4 years ago, I think now, because there was a court case with a company in the United States called Bidesi, where they claimed that Demerara Gold was their brand. They were marketing Demerara Gold already. They were actually doing it, but the sugar actually came out of Mauritius. In any case, we lost the court case, so we're barred from actually exporting to the Demerara Gold to North America. But we are looking at this Enmore crystals, and we have a lot of confidence that it's going to sell well. I think the packaging, we were commended the other day about the packaging, and we should start production of that in September. The CARICOM regional and local markets, most of the sugar we sell there is back sugar, but we do sell quite a bit of Demerara Gold there as well. And the prices that we obtain there from those markets right currently are the best prices really that we obtain for our sugar. The one thing we must mention that I know the preferential prices have gone in the EU, but we cannot get away from selling sugar into the EU. We'll have to continue to do that, and I'll tell you why in a minute when we look at the other slides coming up. And the other thing is the demand for direct consumption sugar, which includes back sugar actually, in CARICOM is not that huge. Yesterday I was listening to a presentation by our representative from London, and he was talking about a market of about 90,000 tons of sugar. But that includes Guyana, where we sell about 22,000, Jamaica, which is self-sufficient now in terms of their local market, and you strip out that 50,000 and you're only left with about 40,000 tons of sugar. But we have to really maximize on what we sell into CARICOM because of the premium price that we get. Let's have a look at the proportion of sales in the next 3 slides that we get in each market. In 2011, with a production of just over 236,000 tons of sugar, as you can see, the EU market in the blue is by far the biggest. Next comes the Caribbean and regional, the US quota in red, and the Guyanese about 20,000. And in 2012, the same trend continues, the lower production, but still most of it went into the EU. 2013, where we had that low production. Still again, the price was quite good in the EU at that time, and we continue to push a lot of sugar into there. 2014, when the price started to slide, really in the EU again, we actually increased our sales. Sorry, we did not increase our sales. We only sold about 17, the CARICOM market, about 20,000 tons, 17,000 tons of sugar. And the US, we satisfied our quota again. And 2015, which is this year, we're looking at a production of just over 227,000 tons of sugar, with the EU taking up about 153,000. The US, there is shown at about 28,000. And the reason for that is the quota year for the US runs from September of one year to September of the following year. So what we're basically doing is we ship the 2014-15 quota in the first half of this year, and the 15-16 will be shipped around November. And the reason for that is because of that good price we're getting out of the US. In terms of molasses, and people don't tend to think of molasses as a product of Gaisuco, but it does make a healthy contribution to our revenues. On average, we sell about $2.5 billion a year worth of molasses. And by the way, the farmers do benefit from that. I see some of them are smiling. It's not that they don't benefit. But the markets we sell into, DDL is by far, DDL in Guyana with the orange. The Barbadian market takes a bit. UK, just a slight amount. And then we have the other islands, which are St. Lucia and St. Vincent. Those are the smaller Caribbean islands. They don't buy an awful lot. The volumes are not huge, but we get a pretty decent price because of that. With DDL and Barbados, the volumes are a lot greater, so they do get a volume discount. And on the right there, with the bar chart, you can actually see the prices we get. With as I mentioned, the small islands, the price is quite good because of the smaller volumes than Barbados, DDL. And the UK is really a world market sale of molasses, where the prices are a lot lower than when you sell into the other 3 territories.
Presenting on the importance of cane farmers to Gaisuco was liaison manager to the Cane Farmers Association, Mr. Walter Singh.
We have a partnership arrangement by law, a partnership arrangement that seeks to recognize farmers as partners, as truest partners, and also to have price sharing formula in terms of payment. We also have extension services in the form of bicycle engaging managers at each cane farming location that will respond for the guidance and training on agronomic practices, that will harmonize farmers' field program with that of the estates, advise on varieties and soil type compatibilities, that's an important one, observe and recommend best practice for good cane growth and development. Skeleton, for example, will have as a department, a complete department with 11 staff, solely for cane farming at that location. Wales, to some extent, has a good team, a 4-member team, that looks at cane farming aspects there as well. With the other estates, one cane farming liaison officer. In addition to that, ICICO provides services, extension services, in the form of land preparation, planting, harvesting, and cane transport. While land preparation and planting and harvesting is being done at two locations at this time, Skeleton and Rosal, we must take note of the limitations here. And I would advise that farmers think seriously in terms of getting their land preparation, planting, and harvesting done by their resources that's available to them. They must think in terms of that now. And of course, that by itself will help to reduce their operating costs, taking out the overheads that's associated with that when the estate would have done it. Cane transport, to a large extent, most of all the locations except for the Wales, where Wales will transport the canes, Wales farmers will transport the canes by the road, but there are some fund farmers there as well using the estate funds. And I know the fund charges associated with using the estate funds is also, you may see it as being high, but it's the cost that is actually incurred by the respective estate to make that fund available. And as the year go by with deterioration, the cost of maintenance and capitalization would have been increased. But recently, and through the benevolence of ICICO, that fund charges for farmers has been reviewed to such an extent that it came down significantly at Skeleton and to some other extent at Wales. I have done a presentation for the Wales farmers prior to approval, and then one at Skeleton after approval, and I hope that the details would have been given there and addressed there.
The liaison manager urged the producers to pay keener attention to their agronomic practices that impact ultimately on the tons cane to tons sugar ratio.
Sugar production seems to be on the upward trend, and which is good. The note here is that it seems to me that when the production peaked for a particular year, immediately after it seems to follow a decline. But farmers, is it just or is it fair to say that farmers, when they reach the level and say they have a good year here, and take it for granted and hope that all will be well for the following year? I don't know. But graphically, what is that is telling us, it seems a good year followed. I hope that this year, 2015, production being what it is, indicated there, that 2016 will not see a drop, but continue an upward trend. Cane yields and quality. In the green, you will notice the tons cane per hectare. and in the red, the TCTS over that period of time, over the last 10 years, including plus 2015. The lower year of 2007, the lower TCTS at just about a little 12.7 about. While that was the best year, it is still not good enough with 12 TCTS. And here, for UK farmers, I want you to pay a little closer attention to your business in terms of your agriculture practices.
Mr. Paul Chung represented the Cane Farmers Association in his presentation on the economics of cane farming. According to Mr. Chung, the relationship between the operations of the cane farmers and the efficiencies of the various estates they supply is crucial to the survivability of the private farmers. Mr. Chung pointed to the existence of the co-ops through which cane farmers market their cane to the estates, stressing that relationship can be expanded to include help in the acquisition of machines for further mechanization of their operations.
Private cane farming has been practiced for over 50 years in this country. Through this activity, farmers were able to maintain their families. Most of them market their canes to the estate through cooperatives, which are some of the more vibrant cooperatives in the country. Through the co-op movement, small and medium-sized farmers can benefit from the fruits of mechanization, as co-ops can own equipment which they can rent to the members. They can also come together, as was done in Bellevue, and own large plots. Many of our farmers' output is equivalent to what is produced by many of the large-scale producing countries, such as in Brazil, India, Australia. They produce between 80 to 100 tons of sugarcane on 1 hectare of land, which shows that in the field we can be competitive. However, there can still be improvements with mechanization, such as for planting, fertilizer application, harvesting, and weed control. It should be noted that Gaisuco average is a little above half of this amount. The challenge and significant difference between Guyana and the major sugar producers is in the processing, whereby in some countries where they use between 6 to 8 tons of sugarcane to manufacture 1 ton of raw sugar, here in Guyana we use twice and sometimes even more than that to process the same amount of sugar. If our processing in the factories can improve and come to standard as is in those countries, then right away our costs would be reduced by 50%, as we will be producing more sugar without having to grow more canes and all the costs associated with that, and no additional harvesting and transportation costs. Farmers would also benefit more and be more motivated about the industry, and hence pay more attention to their farms, as they will be increasing their income.
A critical component of the conference allowed for questions from the participants in the audience. Most of the questions centered on a need for more financial assistance to cane farmers, both through government and the financial institutions.
We, from the European fund, and we hear nothing about it. The Freehold administration received some money from the European fund. And during the election campaign, we were told about some funds owed back. I want to know when this fund will release, if the farmers will benefit from it, because we benefit none from the ones before. Thank you.
Joseph Largo, Intensive Cane Farm Market Society. My question is, in 2014, where we get this TTS at 14.95 per ton canes per ton sugar. to put we in a situation where we need to cover we cost in terms of that, and if also you get a fall in the price of 71,000 in terms to the final payment for the sugar. So right now we get our cultivation in a state, and also guys who could not be subsidized, guys who could not get subsidized when they find themselves in a financial situation. So where do we get the subsidy from to offset our expense that we left overhanging with? And secondly, this NFC, this cost revolving fund, what is spoken about, it's not an easy access to get to the fund. Because since June to date, I applied for the loan, and up to date, no answer. All I get is a riot run wrong. So how could we improve on our production level, as we're hearing from each speaker, and we can't even get access to a loan?
Mr. Chair, with all protocols followed, I was told, or we were told this morning, that the punch charges for the Wales estate or the Wales farmers, we have gotten a 2% discount. I'm wondering at this time, what is a 2% discount from $5,800? And the other estates where they got discounts is 20-something percent, 17%, and 15%. Why this great disparity with the Wales estate? $5,800, and why is 116 is there 2%? It doesn't make any kind of much of a relief to me. And the other part is when this 2% is retroactive from January of last year.
Mr. Walter Singh responded to the last question.
With the punch charges, you would have known by now that the manner of computation is as per the Act. It takes into consideration the use of the ponds, the use of the estates, dams, and waterway, and the haulage, the tractor haulage. And it embraced a 3 years average. The 2 previous actual years costs that are associated with making that service available, including the funds, plus the year in question, the current year, budget year. So at the ending of the year, to have the actual cost, we have an adjustment. And that adjustment would take into consideration the actual cost for the year in question to make the 3-year actual cost average for the 3-year. It's a tedious computation, and for each aspect of the 3 that I mentioned has a number of areas where we pick up the cost. That review that was done embraced a similar pattern for all locations, by Wales having a 2% reduction, means that for the previous years, they've been enjoying a lot of that already. The Skeldon farmers, with that level, it is the fact, and I've done that analysis with the Wales farmers at Wales location, and I've showed a number of areas where the associated cost that was there and has been reduced, and what is expected to be the means of computation. And therefore, it's available. I can have it available, the method of computation, probably at the National Cane Farming Committee, and for each location of the estates, what is the method of computation, and it's the similar at our location. So that, I hope, will satisfy you that it's being a standard manner of doing it.
Elaborating on the questions relative to the EU funding was Professor Clive Thomas.
Questions which have been asked raise very important principles, which I think the cane farmers should take up, particularly in this new dispensation. The first question touches on the issue of the EU funding that was promised to the sugar industry as a result of the end of preferential prices for sugar. That funding came in large measure in the beginning to Gaisugo. And then latterly the government began to argue, the then government, that it should come to the government of Guyana for them to decide on how it should be best applied to sugar. And the European Union, I think, if somebody's here from the European Union, they can confirm it, sought to establish performance indicators for the use of this sugar fund. But I think in the process, they totally ignored the cane farmers. That funding should have been legitimately given to all the players in the sugar industry. The second important aspect of the question that was raised, or the important aspect of the second question that was raised, is the question of subsidies. I'm chairman of Gaisugo, and we're glad for the bailout, but should bailouts be given only to state corporations? I mean, I think this suggests to me that the cane farmers need to put themselves in order so they can make a legitimate claim on public funds in the same way that state corporations do. The third important issue which has been raised by inference from the third question is the question as to whether there is going to be disparity across the country in the allocation of these various charges by Gaisugo. Again, I am not representing cane farmers' interests here, but I think cane farmers should put themselves in a position where they can speak as a body and ask for uniformity of treatment unless some exceptional physical condition makes it necessary to vary from that uniformity. You can't have one rule applied to Demerara, another rule applied to Berbice. You have to establish some uniformity, and I think the responsibility for that lies with the cane farmers themselves. So I would advise you to use this opportunity that you have to put your house in order and to try and build a solid cane farmers movement so you can become recognized as a true pillar of the industry. I would go forward and say that what the government is probably going to aim to do, I can't speak on behalf of the government, they will want to build a strong agricultural community of peasant farmers. So you should insist that your role should not only be confined to thinking of cane, but thinking of cane and other crops, just as Gaisugo is able to come up here and give you a list of all the other things that they're doing. You should have a similar ambition. And that is why I say that I'm hoping the Commission of Inquiry would mark a step from which we can make a fresh start in the operations of the problems of the sugar industry in Guyana.
Also addressing the conference in response to questions was EU Representative Albert Razul.
I just want to say first, I'm impressed by this conference, and it's the first time I hear so many numbers and figures about sugar. We were really bombarded by figures, but it was really, really interesting, and really congratulations to have put all these numbers and problems on the table. You were very good to give all the challenge, and you were also very good to show that there are competitive advantage in the sector, and you have to build about them. What I would like to clarify about the European Union, Professor Clive, you were quite clear. It's measures that have been taken 6 years ago, agreed with the government, and unfortunately all the support is going through the budget support to the budget of the states. And there we enter, as when you mentioned this morning, competition between the ministries to get the money. But we were looking for targets in the agriculture and especially in the sugar sector, but these were only technical measures. The major thing we were looking is the budget in general and the transparency and public good governance in the management of the budget. And unfortunately, end of last year, there were some problems, but this is actually in discussion between the headquarters and Ministry of Finance, and we hope that we will be able, with the progress we can see, to be able to disburse what was committed. We have still resources available on that budget line, especially for technical assistance, and this is we are completely open for discussion with the Ministry of Agriculture, with Guy Succo, to best use this available figure. I would like to just to finish by saying this was one of measures. There are other support that are possible, especially to the farmers, and because we are also providing funds through the ACP facility. I'm based here. You can contact me, and we can have discussion anytime.
Then there were some more questions.
Yes, good afternoon. My name is Lester Andrews from the Elmo Buxton Friendship Co-op Society. The question was asked, but it hasn't been answered, and basically I just want to suggest that the NCFC, we look at the procedure and probably simplify the procedure so that farmers could acquire loans. A lot of my members, they're interested in acquiring loans, and with the difficulty in fulfilling the requirements. I mean, Buxton has in our case, where persons planting lands that they're renting and so on, there's some difficulty proving ownership as a requirement to acquiring a loan. So I think Buxton can be looked at in a special case, and probably the process can be simplified or adjusted to deal with our farmers, because the loan is supposed to be to help with the expansion, but what the farmers are just becoming disinterested because of the difficulty involved in acquiring a loan.
Canes inside. And when them TTS is 16, and we show clean the canes and that, and we TTS is 17 and 18. So we don't understand here, but sucrose, just all set of scientific soldiers come to you with. And put you all cultivation in a set that you them can't, you want to chucking everything, because it didn't pay off. It ain't paying, it's no business. Like we doing business, we're doing business. One time 18 tons to ton cane per week, 20, 19, all sorts of fancy figures. And clean fresh cane from the field straight to the mill. And same thing, 19, 17, 18, 16, 15, all sorts of fancy figures. When you do get islands with them, once as a soldier bring up to you with scientific. When rain falling, you get ITTS. And sun shining, same business, same water. When you water come when the sun shining out,
Chairman of the Commission of Inquiry into the Operations of Guy Succo, Mr. Hanneman, responded.
TCTS, again, yes, I understand what you mean, because I've had cause to say that, some of the TCTSs we've been looking at, they look almost like CPL scores. But again, you're entitled to an explanation, because we as well are worried about the sort of TCTSs we're getting, the sort of poll we're getting. And over the last few days, we've been doing a lot of work to try to drill down to find out what the underlying problems are. And one of our key questions is why, WHY. And we are finding as we press and we press and we press, why, we are getting to some of the underlying causes as to why our poll is so bad, why our TCTS is so bad, And some of the problems we've come up with is, for example, the burning to grinding interval, which is last year was quite atrocious across the industry. I think Wales had the best burning to grinding interval last year with 80-something%. And I think the whole last year Wales looked pretty good. But across the rest of the industry, it was pretty abysmal. And when you can't bring in 80% of your canes within 48 hours, you know, right away, you're going to start losing sugar. Your pole is going to get bad, your pole is going to drop, your TCTS goes up, or you're basically looking at losing sugar. So we've got to try, our plan really is to get 80% of the canes into the factory within 48 hours of cutting. And in the last few days, I think we've noticed Albion, Rose Hall, Blairmont has been doing a pretty good job of getting their BGI up to 80-odd%. The important thing now is to be able to sustain that. Now I think Wales is starting any moment now. I think Wales starting tomorrow morning. IFLUC is also starting any moment. And Skeldon also starting tomorrow morning. So we're going to be keeping, and we're doing this every 24 hours now. Once a day we're looking at each estate's performance indicators, which include burning to grinding intervals. It includes pole. It includes a number of indicators that tells us where the problems are. And once a day, from the very top through the management team, we're pressing the estates with questions to get to the answers. Now, as we get the answers and as our performance improves, you, the farmers, will also benefit. But I think, to come back to your point, I think the estate owes you a decent explanation as to why your TCTS is what it is. And I think if you're not happy with the explanation you get, you should refer this to Walter as our cane farming manager, and then he will take it up with our factory operations department, and we will get back to you with a further explanation.
Farmers and householders, pesticides and other chemicals used on your farms, gardens, and in your homes are dangerous and can result in death or serious injury if mishandled. It is important to ensure that all pesticides and toxic chemicals be secured in a locked cabinet away from children. Never store pesticides in the same space as food, animal feed, or other supplies. A message from the Pesticides and Toxic Chemicals Control Board.
Well, that's all the time we have on this week's edition of Farmers Connection, a presentation of the Ministry of Agriculture. Farmers Connection is produced for television by Matrix Video Productions and Advertising. On this week's program, we featured highlights of the recent National Cane Farmers Conference hosted by the Ministry of Agriculture. Until next week then, I'm Christopher Holden, on behalf of the entire production team, saying so long, see you around.
Fasote se jola de ko